When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
They can't even have a civil conversation.
I think there's a lot of triggers.
If you want something, you can achieve it.
Absolutely.
You just have to push.
I took that leap of faith. Two-time Olympian, IFBB men's physique pro, Patrick Fulgham. So outside of bodybuilding, the kids down in Mexico where I was building homes for in these poverty-stricken areas who time is the most precious asset. Oftentimes our disagreements come from opinions. It's not even fact.
What's good, fam? Welcome back to Financial Fitness, a podcast where finance and fitness collide. I'm your host, Sam Razban-Nia, the fitness accountant. I assist small businesses and entrepreneurs with all their tax and accounting needs. Today, our guest is, I'm going to see if I can get this right, two-time Olympian and IFBB men's physique pro, Patrick Fulgham. Welcome, Pat.
Thank you, Sam. It's a pleasure to be here. We're super excited to, have our audience join in and watch great conversation pieces and, have some amazing topics to discuss as well. So thanks again for having me on.
Of course. Wonderful to have Pat here. Someone who's really respected in the industry, and I was really glad that he gave us the opportunity, and we're going to get right into it. So, Patrick, something that has been on my mind and a lot of people are probably thinking is, who is Patrick Fulgham? Not the bodybuilder, but the person. Tell us about your background and, how you got started.
Sure. So, again, two-time Olympian, IFBB men's physique pro, Patrick Fulgham. So outside of bodybuilding, I was actually born in Florida in Tallahassee, to be 41 years young this year in 10 days exactly.
Nice.
From now. So all the Virgos out there, happy birthday. And, so born in Florida, military family. My father was actually drafted in the Navy and retired after 30 years of investment, then went on to work another 20 for the military. And then my mother also working and retiring after, approximately 20 plus years in the social services industry as well. Moved to Italy, my parents for 7 years, came back to Florida. And then I grew up in Virginia Beach, Virginia, where I ended up earning, a bachelor's in psychology as well. And then drove 40 and a half hours across the country by myself to beautiful Southern California, San Diego, California, specifically America's finest city. And from that, the rest is history. So,
and what age were you when you made that decision to come all the way to LA?
So that was November 26, 2008. So I was, 26, I believe, 25, 26 years of age. And just, had this epiphany. And spoke with a cousin who lived here in San Diego at the time, who informed me, how beautiful it was. And, I took that leap of faith. My mom said, spread your wings and go. And that I did. And, military background, my father was like, what are you doing? But in the same sense, I was interviewing for positions, driving across the country, printed out MapQuest, actually, for those who are old enough to remember that. MapQuest, opened that, took, the 10 west all the way across the country. And November 28th, 2008, welcome to California. And man, we got a lot to discuss there as well. So.
Okay, so you have siblings from, I think, what you told me. How many siblings do you have, and what is your relation to them?
Yeah, so very, very close-knit family, all back on the East Coast. I'm the only one here. I have an older brother who's, speaking of which, kind of in the finance, sector, okay. And then a younger sister as well. We're all about 5.5, 6 years apart, who works in the the nursing PA kind of sector as well. So yeah, I'm the middle child and went just a completely different route, and definitely proud of, who I've become and who I'm still evolving into at this point.
I love that. So, being in San Diego, which I think you said is called the finest city in the world or in the U.S.?
America's finest city.
America's finest city.
I don't get paid for that, by the way, but yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there.
So, why did you choose San Diego? How did that come about versus, let's say, La La Land that we're filming in right now? Sure. What was that determination?
Yeah, so it was a easy decision for me. Again, my cousin said this place is everything you would see on TV and everything that you can possibly imagine, unlike where I grew up. Not to knock, I mean, I'm very proud of my hometown, 757 Virginia Beach, and it's what raised me to be who I am, and cultural values and foundation. And it's where I went to school. I have tons of friends still back home, and that will always be my home and where my heart is. But driving across the country, I just knew I wanted and needed something so different from an entrepreneurial, perspective, to cultivating multiple businesses now, as of now, to the palm trees, the mountains, or the montañas, to, the culture, being right there close to the border of Mexico. Just needed something different, and was more so exhausted from the monotony of same thing different day.
Hmm.
And I just knew California was it, and I haven't regretted it one bit, even after living so many other places around the country, such as Colorado, Maryland, DC, growing up in Virginia,
Very well
Florida.
traveled.
Absolutely. So, and
Yeah.
I lived all of these places. It's just now, home base being America's finest city in San Diego. Just a beautiful place, and looking forward to continuously establishing additional roots there. And you never know where next may be. So
Wonderful.
yeah.
You brought up just a little bit ago, being a business owner. I really don't think people know that about you. You have multiple businesses. You're an entrepreneur. Tell us about the companies that you both created and currently work with right now.
Sure. So my full time, actually, I work in software for a company that created a customer relationship management service for
Okay.
loan officers in the real estate sector. But one of the things I'm most proud of is my nonprofit. My nonprofit I started really essentially is there to fill voids wherever a void needs filling. So it's called 1C13. That acronym actually stands for First Corinthians 13.
Wow.
What we do is we love people unconditionally. We're there to help wherever there's help that is needed. We used to help build homes down in Tijuana, down in Mexico, for Los Niños, for the kids who were unfortunately poverty stricken. Do speaking engagements all over the world.
Wow.
From I've been to Vietnam, been to China, headed to the Philippines next month to
Can
judge
I join you on
specifically.
that trip,
Absolutely,
please?
hey, let's
Yeah.
go. So, and my lady is actually her father actually lives in the Philippines as well, so I'll be able to formally meet him for the first time as well, which I'm super excited about. And but I think more so than anything, kind of dating back prior to moving to San Diego, one of the jobs that I had right out of college that I'm actually was probably one of the most impressionable opportunities that I was granted was working for the Department of Social Services and Human Services. And I work with fetal alcohol syndrome patients or individuals, Asperger's and
Mm.
autistic children. And working within foster care specifically, I did what they call respite care, and um, I did a lot of the removal of biological kids from homes in which they were being abused in
Oh, wow.
every sense of the word that you can possibly think of. And one of the things that really still hits me to this day is there was a 12-year-old young girl in the back seat of the city car where I picked her up from another foster care home where she was being transferred back to social services in hopes to be adopted. And the one thing that I will never ever forget is her sitting in the backseat of that city car and asking why I couldn't be her father, why I could not be her dad. She literally fell in love with me probably within the first 5 minutes. Asked her if she was hungry,
Wow.
asked her if she needed anything, if she was okay. And it was that moment that I knew I was destined for something greater outside of myself,
Wow.
outside of my foundation, my belief, etc. I knew I could help. I just didn't know how. I was 21 at the time. And I knew right then and there that, I really essentially wanted to make a difference in so many other people's lives, as I never experienced that firsthand. You know, I thank God. I thank my parents for, raising, three individuals, myself, my brother, my sister. We always had hot food on our table. We always had. I was surrounded by people who did not have, and for me it hurt, you know, deeply. So I said to myself, when you know better, you do better. And I knew I wanted to do something that wasn't to be some savior or anything to that extent, but I knew that if I could help, then I would. And that's exactly what I did. And I started my nonprofit.
Wow.
And outside of that, I started a consulting business called Body Blueprint Consulting.
Oh,
And
okay.
that's for individuals who are more so trying to discover their direction in life, their why or purpose driven life. And I'm actually starting another business that I'm
This guy.
extremely passionate about. And this business specifically will be working with kids in the junior high school level, specifically athletes, honing in on their communicative efforts to actually sharpen their skills and be able to convey a message clearly and concisely. I've interviewed several hundreds of people at this point, and you ask them, tell me a little bit about yourself or who you are and how it feels to X, Y, and Z. And unfortunately, in society, and this is generally speaking, oftentimes it's more challenging for them to convey this message that is clear and concise. My new business called Champions Voice will actually take champions, junior high school and high school level athletes, and not just allow them to excel athletically, but also from an academic perspective. So we then, because what happens if you injure yourself or God forbid anything were to happen to you physically, who are you to the core and how do you want to be perceived? Even though perception is other people's realities and can be skewed, at least I know that we can do and really instill and plant these seeds, no pun intended with the plants and flowers back here, but to really help sharpen, communication and these communicative efforts that these kids absolutely 100% should, really be able to convey.
I really want to get into this topic of communication more, something we've talked about on the phone and numerous times. I personally believe that the millennial generation and the generations surrounding our generation, that very essential skill is now completely lost.
Correct.
Doing this probably scares 99.9% of people.
Sure.
Just having a conversation like this. And one of the reasons that I love being an accountant is communicating with
That's right.
individuals, families, business owners, because to me, life is about people.
Absolutely.
We are all here together to build something beautiful. And, IG and TikTok have not at all helped this. What kind of advice do you have to the younger generation or even everyday people that can help us in terms of communicating better?
Yeah, I think one of the things, thank you for sharing that and actually opening up that discussion. There's an individual, this is by the name of Simon Sinek, who I listen to quite a bit. And he would always say, if you don't know business, if you don't know people, and I really love that because no one man or woman is an island. We all need each other to some extent, right? It's like planting those seeds, which doesn't typically create just one flower or
Mm-hmm.
doesn't just create one sprout of whatever it is, the fruit or vegetable, etc. It creates a multitude, so the same concept applies in life. And just like with my nonprofit, to kind of go back into that is, this is the community helping the community. And it's not about, once people can realize and really truly dig a bit deeper and understand that it's not solely about you. I mean, it takes, my cup is filled when I'm able to fill other people's cup. It's just a cyclical, it's a cycle. It's cyclical,
That's beautiful.
right? And it not just feels good, but I want to be remembered, right? I want to set the tone, set the foundation, plant my feet so deep where now I'm legacy leaving, right? It's like I want to establish a legacy and this impression where you're unforgettable, right? And then you pass it on.
Mm-hmm.
Just like my mom always used to say, one smile creates another, right? And it's so true just in life, right? It's like it's not all about you, but it starts with you, right? And that's perspective, right? One thing that my lady and I were on the phone with my mother yesterday. I mean, she has so many golden nuggets. Both my parents actually, my mom and my dad. But this really hit me hard. Is when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Very
You
interesting.
know, and life is about perspective. Sometimes we see so many things or people on the surface, you don't know, really truly know me.
Right.
It's kind of like judging. I might be the head judge of MuscleContest. I might be this individual, but I only show you what I want you to see until you ask, until you dig a bit deeper.
Right.
No one knew I speak multiple languages. No one really knew that I was very well traveled. No one really knows and or don't really even care, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I care. When people say, I don't care about what other people think and this and that and all this stuff, it's like, but why? The context has to be different. I do care about what you think and what you believe, etc., to an extent, because I care about your well-being as another human being.
Right.
Big difference.
That's beautiful. You know, I think I want to tie this back to when you communicate with one person, it's it is an exponential effect, right? That's something that I'm getting, which is beautiful. One person that you touch can explode to that person finally feeling something that can touch somebody else.
That's right.
And I actually really believe that that girl that you helped when you were in social services, I think the fact that, you know, because she never had care and she looked at you that way, I truly believe that that girl will now be able to touch other people
Sure.
in a beautiful way because it's exponential. She received the gift, and that will allow her to touch other people in this
That's
world
right.
in a positive light.
Absolutely.
So it's exponential to
It
me.
really is. It's a domino effect, and it is the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
You know, and it starts with us, right? Like we have to be true and authentic to ourselves, and that will express outwardly. You know, and there's nothing more fulfilling and rewarding, and you know, it's never surfaced with me, right? It's like, you know, I do care. I mean, it's like how we met, even at the Fit Expo just recently. You
Yeah.
know, hey, this is Sam. You know, he does this, and I'm just because you just never know. You never know who you'll need and or who could help you, and vice versa.
Right. Right. Um, Patrick really was such a kind gentleman when we bumped into each other a couple of weeks ago at the Fit Expo, and we were talking about the pod, and one of his friends comes up and he very kindly says, "This is Sam. He's an accountant." And you know, these little things make a big impact, not only to me, but I think when that individual sees that, it shows such a great openness.
That's
You
right.
know, so I appreciate that.
Absolutely. I always say I do what I do because someone did what they felt was necessary for me. Someone granted me an opportunity. Why not pass it on? It's that simple. It's that simple. Because you just never know. You never know.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. So, Patrick, this goes along with you know, I want to talk about that idea of dissent, people disagreeing. Something that I've come to learn recently, sadly, is when we don't communicate with each other, it creates resentment.
Sure.
And opposing parties are not able to actually come to a conclusion, you know, maybe not to agree to disagree, but they can't even have a civil conversation. And this is something that is really sad, in my opinion, that's happening to us.
Yeah.
It's going to lead to a very dark place because communication creates resentment.
Right.
So, you know, what do you think about ghosting and not, you know, telling people your feelings and people just, what can you say about this? What do you teach the individuals in your new nonprofit?
Yeah, I think first of all, it is okay to agree to disagree as long
course.
as we do that civilly.
Exactly.
We can look at our political climate. We can look at religion. We can look at so many different facets of, you know, the world, and even from the, you know, judging perspective. You know, I mean, you know, we have a panel, a consensus of judges who will agree or disagree. You know, on who the winner will be. Yet we have an audience or teams, et cetera, who will then disagree on our decision. We can agree to disagree civilly. We're the ones who are put in these positions, or to actually come to an agreement, right. You know, to actually, you crown this champion. I think when it comes, I believe truly when it comes to lack of communication and or beliefs, stiff arming, kind of, dismissing, having like very dismissive behavior. Um, I think there's a lot of triggers that happen. There are a lot of, things that have happened to individuals in one's life that led to kind of shutting down. Unfortunately, you don't know what you don't know, but when someone challenges you, is it projection of like, I don't know the answer, so let me just shut down, or I'm not going to be a nice individual and say what I want to because this may come off X, so I'm just not going to say anything at all.
Hmm.
We live in a world, this is what makes the world go round. It's okay to disagree, but disagree out of curiosity. Oftentimes our disagreements come from opinions. It's not even facts.
Exactly.
So all,
Exactly.
when we really truly think about that, it's just like, is it black and white, or is there some gray there? Is it, I believe this, you believe that, and you'll never change my mind. So I have this confirmation bias. So no matter what you tell me, I'm always gonna, believe this, even if I know there could be some, truth behind it. You can't tell me anything. So instead, I'm going to block you and remove you and stiff arm you, all this stuff, which leads to more conflict
Right.
because you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
So instead, we just dismiss it. It's no way to live. I mean, we'll always be at war, because then we can't get through to people. It's like, help me see it through opposed to see through you. Big difference.
And we have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
And that's the difficulty. I think the way that society is going is we want everything to be as easy as possible now. And, sadly, our world hasn't made that easier either. Is
Sure.
everything that we're dealt with now comes within a millisecond, right?
Correct.
Satisfaction, immediate satisfaction, just that is not helping us at all.
No.
Um,
Instant gratification. I was
instant
told to,
gratification.
I was informed and actually borderline disciplined physically, but just disciplined when our parents could discipline us. You think you know where I'm going with that? But it helped me. I mean, it allowed me to see the light, literally. And I look back and I'm so thankful for my parents who, in my surroundings, in my support system, and those who weren't so supportive, and those who did disagree with me, and those who did fight me, to help me become who I am today, which is an open book, which is someone who has perspective, which is someone who can actively listen. And whether I agree to disagree with you or not, I'm there to listen to you from a place of curiosity. Teach me something. Tell me
Right.
something I don't know.
Right.
Again, we're all perfectly imperfect individuals. So again, I'm wanting to evolve, and the best way to evolve is application. And application comes from learning. You learn, you have to be open to learning, and then you apply, and then you grow through what you go through. It's as simple as that, but not so simple, unfortunately.
Let's hope we can make a change,
Absolutely.
And what you're doing with your nonprofits is a beautiful thing.
It is.
Can you tell us about what made you want to become a business owner? Where do you find entrepreneurial spirit, in your opinion, or is it something that's innate in you? Because you now have multiple,
Sure.
so
Sure. I think
that's a loaded question.
no. I mean, it's a great question though,
Yeah.
because it's not for everyone. I mean, not to say that my belief is what for you isn't for you, and vice versa, but for me specifically and my family and how we're going to eat and how I believe in loyalty, and how unfortunately I've been in positions of lack of loyalty within the corporate world,
Mm,
how I can give my 100% and
still not be good enough.
it still not be good enough. And I look at this like your 100% may not be my 100% and vice
Right.
versa. But what I do know is in environments where you have little to no control, it's like, here you go, you do the work. This is what we believe you're worth. And we're going to pay you on the 1st and 15th. And that's it. Maybe get a percentage of a raise every year or 2 year, whatever the case may be, but you're under someone else's control. At any given moment, they can say, we don't really need you anymore. Thanks for your service. Goodbye. And I said, how do I take back a little bit? So it's not about the control per se. Really, essentially, it's about making a difference. And how do I do that? And then how do I, formulate, come up with this, speaking of, I guess, your business to an extent, but formulate, these ideas that turn into actions. So allow people to work collectively together to then provide a service to other people. And then how do I do that and also get financially rewarded for that
Right.
as well, for the work that we physically do and or do. But then when I'm not there physically, how do I also exchange my non-physical time for monetary value as well? And that's something we can obviously discuss later as well. But for me, it is about, establishing something where I can leave, talk about legacy leaving, an impression to, my future kids and my family and my friends, et cetera. It's really about establishing, worth from a net worth perspective
Right.
and a net work perspective.
That's very nice. I love that.
Yeah.
Pat, I want to get into, you know, the side that most people recognize you by, and that is being a professional bodybuilder, right?
Sure.
Um, I want to get into how did you start in this whole thing? We could start from how you became a men's physique competitor, and then into more about you being a head judge today. So,
Sure.
who were your coaches? How did that even come about?
So,
Yeah.
oh man, April 13th, 2013.
I still can't believe you
Yeah,
remember the
I remember
day.
this vividly because 13 is my lucky number. My mom and I, our number that we just have is very angelic. Um, but April 13th, 2013, with my very first show, 6 weeks prior to that, I met this individual at a company where I used to work
Okay.
in education. So actually, I have two master's degrees, and one happens to be in education.
Two masters.
Two
What is
masters,
the other one in?
organizational management with a leadership
Oh
specialization.
man,
So,
this guy never
and
stops.
this is after barely graduating high school, and this is not to toot my own horn or formal education, etc. But this is coming from someone who had a lisp growing up, who had a stuttering problem growing up, who
Really?
was bullied into the gym, which will segue into bodybuilding, then to obviously compete at the Olympia 2015 and 16, to then becoming head judge of MuscleContest, etc. Domino effect, right? Positivity, perspective, keeping an open mind, persevering through, resilience, all these things that unfortunately so many people just do not establish this type of grit today. Instant gratification, just
Right.
like we talked about. April 13th, 2013, 6 weeks prior, this individual I used to work with, kept walking by. He said, "Man, God told me you're going to be a bodybuilder one day." And I laughed. And I was like, "Bodybuilding?" He was like, "Well, you look like you're in good shape." And I used to wear suits to work. And I was like, "Okay." So
You've never met him at this point?
at this point, there was no formal introduction, nothing. It was just, we were in passing.
Wow.
And I don't want to give out his name, but
Uh-huh.
his first name is Nick. Haven't seen him since. Haven't seen him since. And he gave the information to my very first coach from Team Fidelis, Terry Placker,
Okay.
who then informed me. I gave him a call, hung up because I was nervous, scared. I was like looking at bodybuilding and thinking Arnold Schwarzenegger, Phil, these guys are huge. There was a new division a year after I started competing called Men's Physique. And I gave him a call and he said, "I'm going to turn you into a champion in 6 weeks." I did my very first show again, April 13th, 2013, and ended up placing third behind the former Olympia, Jeremy Buendia. I didn't know who he was at
Oh
the
wow.
time, anything, and
This was where, in LA
it
or
was in Culver City.
in Culver
Yep,
City?
here in
Okay.
LA, yeah.
Wow.
And just several weeks after that, I did my second show in Chicago, which was a national level show. I was working on my second master's degree at that point in time. I had a 22 page paper due the evening before I stepped on stage, completed
Wow,
that.
prep and a paper.
Prep and a paper. I was in working full time. I mean, it was a lot, but again, you do what you have to do to get the job done.
Wow.
That's it. Perseverance.
So that first prep that you did, first of all, 6 weeks is less
It's
than
a month and a
half.
half. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I mean, what is the normal now? 16 weeks
It
is
just
prep,
it depends
right?
on the individual. It depends on the lifestyle. There's so many variables and factors, but yeah, 6
That was a
weeks.
nice prep then. At least you
Oh,
weren't
it's great.
starving for
Yeah,
16
no,
weeks.
I didn't know it, but I didn't know any. You don't know what you don't know. I
Exactly.
didn't know any better. I guess I was already in semi good shape, and yeah, and from that point, a year and a half later, ended up earning my pro card in Pittsburgh. Yep, and
Wow.
then 2 weeks after that, I moved to Washington D.C. Worked with my brother through. It was the very first minority-owned golf company, and we were traveling back and forth. A few months after that, I moved back to. Actually, I didn't move. I came to LA for my pro debut, January 2015, and because 2014 ended up earning my pro card. 2015, very first show, January, and then competed at the Olympia 2015.
15.
Broke my leg afterward playing basketball.
Oh, wow.
2 weeks after the Mr. Olympia, but I qualified a week later for the 2016 Olympia. And then 1 week after that, ended up breaking my leg playing basketball. At that time, I was with Kim Odo with Body by O. And my nickname is Bubba, and I call him Kimbo Slice. And, from that point, full recovery, and stepped right back on the Olympia stage 2016, full-fledged, just persevered, through one foot in front of the other, wasn't able to walk. I was on crutches for a while. And
Wow.
I mean, this story can go on, but it's just the true testament of, grit, belief, resilience, perseverance, consistency, all of those factors that have not much to do with the physical, but more so the mental and the heart and the drive to know no matter what comes in life, we go through ebbs and flows all the time, which will always be there. It's up to you.
That's very beautiful.
Yeah.
It's if you really want something, you're gonna make it happen.
Absolutely.
I've learned that the hard way, and I think I needed to learn it the hard way to really understand it. We do have a tendency to give up.
Sure.
That's just human nature, but it's the mentality of knowing you can do it if you really want it and push yourself.
Absolutely.
I did not think I was going to be a business owner, but I said to myself, again, going back to the corporate America thing, it was a very rough ride for me.
Sure.
For almost a decade, working for various accounting firms. The life wasn't right for me,
Yeah.
being under someone's watch. And the aspect of me not really being able to talk and communicate with clients
Sure.
was what was hurting me the most.
Yeah.
Because I am not that type of a person to sit behind a computer 24/7 and not get that connection. I still have to do that as an accountant, but I get that human connection now,
That's right.
which I believe, again, that's what life is about, but also it fills me with joy. I love learning about other people and their cultures and their backgrounds and their families. And, having that trust that the clients come to me, it's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
So I just urge anybody, if you really want it, you can make it work.
That's right.
So I didn't know this, but I want to talk about Jen just a
Yeah,
little bit,
yeah.
if that's cool with
Of
you.
course. Yeah.
So for those who don't know, Patrick, he has a girlfriend, Jennifer Lau, right?
yes.
Jennifer Lau. Yeah, tell us a little more about Jen, and
I don't want to go too much into
I
depth
hope
with
she's
Jen,
gonna be a
but-
guest in the next
She will. She
few
absolutely
weeks.
will.
So yeah,
Well, speaking of entrepreneurship and drive and perseverance, etc., I'll let her get into the full depths of it. But just an amazing woman, an amazing individual who was initially born in the Philippines. She has a business as a hair salon. She's a colorist, but she owns her own business as well. And, she's also an IFBB bikini pro. And
Two
also,
pros in one.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I
And,
like it.
but even how we met, nothing's just happenstance, and it was by fate, just one of those things where um, I met her through a connection in which was kind of not likely, in terms, I mean, two completely different areas. And, I didn't know anything about her, or, I just happened to see her and was introduced to her through, a friend of mine, through, posing seminars and everything else. And, from that point, it was like, oh, I actually established a little bit of a liking, for who she is as a person, not as a competitor or anything to that extent, but just someone who I never, don't even remember. She's going to kill me for this, but I don't even remember her, because she didn't earn her pro card through us. I don't remember judging her ever,
You
like
do see hundreds
nothing.
of competitors every
Correct.
weekend. So, I mean,
Correct.
in all fairness,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where, it just works, it just clicks. And, she has been my borderline admin to an extent. And, we had a discussion regarding how do I, manage, the traveling, working full time, and I'm so thankful, by the way, for the corporate job I do have, because it does allot me, the benefits through health and dental and vision, though my insurance. And I love who I work with culturally. And, and on top of that, I'm still able to do the things that I also love within the bodybuilding industry, but also outside of that as well, such as culture and food and travel and immersion and all of those things, and the multitude of languages like you speak, four
Mm,
plus. And so all those things. And Jen has also taught me so much about myself, and patience, and the discipline that it takes to actually get jobs done, to the best of my ability. And I think when you have someone who truly pours into you, who believes in you just as much, if not more, than you believe in yourself, then you found not just a great relationship, but a great partnership and a great friendship. And that to me says a lot about an individual. So yeah.
shout
So
out to
Jen,
Jen.
thank you. Love you.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So, Pat, what's on my mind now is uh, I think the bulk of what people know you by is being muscle contest head judge.
Sure.
How did that come about? How did you get into that? And then I want to get into, the difficulties that come with it from
Sh-
the third parties looking in. So,
Sure.
yeah, how did you get started with that?
So after, not even really necessarily after competing, but 2017-ish, there's vendors around that work our shows, supplement companies, apparel companies, et cetera. And I happened to be working the booths, and one of those booths I was working for and with happened to be via MuscleContest. We have an ointment called Lipoxyderm,
Yeah.
and I was working their booth. And, you know, this kind of goes back to the foundation of communicative efforts and being the extrovert I am now. And I know that coming from the introvert who I was, who had that lisp, who had, speech impediments, or challenges that I never thought I would overcome and face head on, to then being asked for, it's kind of like what I said earlier. Someone gave me an opportunity. I felt it was necessary and still feel it will always be necessary to pass it on. They gave me an opportunity and they asked me and saw something bigger in me, which was a judging opportunity, out of almost nowhere, and, I test judged. This was starting back in 2016, 2017
Okay.
ish. And then led me to establish, kind of this foundation that allowed me to grow into who I am now. And I'm so thankful and extremely grateful for this opportunity with MuscleContest, the largest promoter of bodybuilding in the world. 9 countries, 205 plus shows,
Wow.
5 continents. I mean, it's just an incredible opportunity that is actually more than just bodybuilding. Something good friend Arya of mine actually always says is that bodybuilding is more than body, it's character building. And this is something that has allowed me to develop it within my own character and evolve into something I always wanted to be, someone I always wanted to be. And that was an established, not just business owner, but an established individual who can actually make moves, pave ways, and create lasting positive impressions on people. That's bigger than just judging. So when we are there as a panel, and I'm just so thankful and grateful for that opportunity to not just be a judge, right? It's to be, someone who is embarking on, creating lasting experiences and positive experiences for people who come in to actually, you know, compete with us, and I think regardless of how they do, one of my jobs there is to create an amazing experience for individuals. That's it.
Okay.
So
So I'm going to push back on this a little bit. This is, I'm sure you get a lot of questions
sure,
about how you made a call, or, how do you deal with bodybuilding being a subjective sport,
sure.
technically all about looks, how do you make calls? How do you, if someone pushes you back, like what do you say to all this? Because you get scrutinized, I would
Sure.
say, a lot more than the average person.
Absolutely.
Not just because you are a professional bodybuilder, but also because now you judge something that is subjective.
Correct.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, and this is from my own personal perspective, is those calls are made with conviction. Yes, it is a subjective sport, but there's still objective criteria that each category, we have to abide by, right? And
right.
so at the end of the day, regardless if you're in bikini, men's physique, classic physique, bodybuilding, wellness, etc., there's still criteria that we judge you by,
Mhm.
right? So, and yes, there's confirmation bias, there's subjectiveness regarding the sport. We're judges for a reason. That's how I look
Someone's got
at
to
it.
make a call.
Someone
That's
has to
what a
make a
judge
call.
is. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's what a consensus of judges do.
Right.
Whether we all agree with one another, that's why we have a panel, And so, and I love that we're able to communicate on that panel, because maybe I see things different than one of the other judges and vice versa. So let's discuss that. And again, just like we were talking about earlier, we can agree to disagree as long as we do that civilly and respectfully, but let's come from a place of curiosity. So validate why you are choosing or why you are seeing something that I'm potentially not seeing, and vice versa. Then we come to a decision. Either way, a decision has to be made.
Are
So
are you able to, give us a little more insight about what happens when there is a disagreement among the few, or is that a little too
no, not
private? Like,
necessarily.
how do you make that call so quickly? Because when you're dealing with hundreds of competitors for a show,
Sure,
I always see you guys making these quick calls. So I'm
sure.
always thinking to myself, wow, I know you guys are excellent at what you do because you've been in it and practicing so long, but what if there is a disagreement? How does that go about?
I don't know if it's necessarily, I mean, maybe the terminology is disagreement,
Mhm.
but just like a ref in, boxing or any other, industry,
Right.
again, we're in those positions to make a decision.
Right.
So a decision has to be made.
Right.
So we also have an eye for this, because a lot of us have been doing this for quite some time, since 2017, and it's not that, well, old eyes may not see new things, or new eyes may see something different. And yes, it is subjective, but at the end of the day, we again have to come to a decision, and those decisions need to be made with conviction. We have to say, this is why I chose who we chose, or not even I. This is why we chose. And again, whether it's, let's say we have 5 judges, 3 choose one way, 2 choose another way, and then there's scores that get computed, and we then come to a final decision. That should, kind of be the case, because if we're all in agreement all the time, it's like, okay, are you just going with my sole decision, or are we actually, just like in our social climate, speaking up because we feel, hey, this is what I'm seeing that's different than your particular decision.
I see.
So again, then we make the call, and then we let the scores, kind of pan out to how they're going to, pan out. So,
Okay.
yeah.
That's a difficult spot to be in.
Sure.
Yeah. Do you have you had in these past 8 years or so that you've been judging, uh, coaches or individuals come up to you and give you you know,
Crap.
yeah.
Sure.
How do you deal with that? Has that happened, first of
Oh,
all?
absolutely. Yeah. It happens more often than a lot of people realize, but I look at that as life because that's what happens in life. Everyone has an opinion
Yeah.
about something.
Yeah.
You're not always, and that's the ebbs and flows of life. And it's okay, right? I mean, until you're in that decision, or excuse me, until you're really in my shoes, I'm not going to say your opinion doesn't matter, but we made that decision based on the position we're in,
Right.
which is judge, audience. You, it's like not stay in your lane per se, but in one sense, hey, the decisions that we're making are being made because we're in these positions to make those.
Right.
Let us do our job, to the best of our ability. And if you have something to say that you may are, potentially questioning us on, then sure, I always say, hey, I'm always open to feedback, because that's the only way we grow
Right.
in relationships. Cause this is also a relationship. So tell me what you saw or tell me what you're thinking and, but please be respectful. That's all I ever ask.
And you guys, all the judges give feedback, right? After the
Absolutely.
show, everybody always has
Absolutely.
what they can work on and
Sure.
how to get better.
Because we're all perfectly imperfect
Perfectly.
individuals.
Yeah. Props to you, because
Yeah.
that's a difficult spot to be in.
Yeah.
And, tensions obviously run high because, let's say, we have some coaches who've created Olympians. I don't want
Sure.
to say created, but have coached
Absolutely.
Olympians. And when someone has been on prep for 16 to 20 weeks, their emotions are even heightened
Of
even more.
course.
And it hurts. It
It
hurts
does.
more than I would say
Absolutely.
other sports,
Absolutely.
because of how much dedication and mental toughness had to go into doing
And
that.
that's the thing. So
Yeah,
it's there can only be one first place. Everyone knows that coming into the sport.
exactly.
So we talk about being realistic, we talk about being positive. One of the things that I always talk about is sportsmanship. If everyone knows, because not everyone comes into this sport wanting the same things, which is necessarily to even earn a first place spot or a top five. A lot of people look at this as, you know what, I lost, 20 pounds, 30 pounds, 100 pounds. I want to get on stage because I have stage fright. My family's here to come see me. This is a great opportunity and experience to do something I've never done before. There's so many different variables and factors as to why people, get on stage. It's not always necessarily to win, but winning's part of it. To me, it always has been for me personally. So when I didn't win in terms of a first place earning,
Right.
then of course I'm distraught, I'm angry, I'm upset, but I'll never show it to you. I take that and, I always say, oftentimes I learn best and I learn the most when I hit the bottom or
Ah,
when I quote unquote fail. One of my famous quotes actually, and I'll say this, a lot of people actually recognize and know me from this, is that never let success get to your head and never let failure get to your heart. And whether you define failure or however you define failure or success, strictly up to you, but always say never get so full of yourself, because as humble as the next person may be or you think you are, sometimes it hurts to be humbled.
okay. Okay. Pat, a contentious issue that has been gaining steam in the past few years on IG that I've seen is new categories that introduce, let's say, most amount of weight lost, or individuals who don't look like your classic bodybuilder. Um, a lot of people say that doesn't fit in into the traditional categories. Is it fair for them to be up there and show themselves as bodybuilders, and some people saying they're not? Like, what is your what do you think about all this?
First and foremost, I commend and give kudos to anyone who is able to take themselves from one place, whether it's physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, financially, from one place where it breeds unhappiness and all the things that come with the things that they're really not so satisfied with, to then stepping into and or stepping outside of their comfort zone into a place where they have fulfillment and have established, this weight loss journey, and they're proud of themselves and they want to showcase that. That's what bodybuilding is. Like I said earlier, bodybuilding isn't just bodybuilding, it's character building. So when people do that and they come in and step on stage 100 pounds, 150, I think we had someone who was 178 pounds
Wow.
who lost, if I'm not mistaken, it was 178 pounds, and then has their entire family there, and she's on stage and she is showcasing her. That's hard work, that's dedication, that's also impressionable, and that gives so much hope to all those other individuals, whether they're men and or women, mothers, veterans, I mean, etc. Gives them hope to actually be able to do the same thing. I think
It is a
bodybuilding,
possibility. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
So whether it fits someone else's, you know, perceived notion or perspective of, hey, that's not bodybuilding, well, we wouldn't have the category of, most weight loss or whatever the case may be if we didn't want to acknowledge that and recognize that and give kudos and commend those individuals for a job well done. So I always think, hey, as long as within, you still, get up there with a tan and, the criteria especially with the rights, whether it's board shorts or,
Right.
bodybuilding
Still
shorts, still
respecting
respecting
the rules.
the,
Yeah.
the rules
Right.
is one thing, but to make mockery out of it is completely different.
Yeah.
Now, if someone, does that, that's obviously completely different, but absolutely, I think it's fantastic that someone can get up. First of all, even getting on stage
Yep.
is a huge
Yeah.
accomplishment.
In your bikini or in your shorts, yeah.
To be judged,
Yeah.
that in itself is a huge accomplishment in itself. And then to also, everyone's journey is different,
Yeah.
right? So I think it's incredible. It's an amazing, opportunity that creates a lasting experience for everyone, and it gives hope and it can inspire the masses because everyone is someone outside of bodybuilding.
Again, touching one person will be an exponential effect. It'll touch multiple people.
Absolutely.
And I do respect this. I came from a difficult background health wise, I talked about in my first pod with Russ. I was a really big kid, and one day I reached that rock bottom that you talked about, and that's where the growth happens. I said I can't take this anymore, so I had to do something about it, and I got a coach, and that really just changed the rest of my life. Like,
right.
health is the most important thing to me, and I hope that maybe I touched at least one other person to see that you need that. Health, without health, we're nothing.
Health is wealth.
Health is wealth.
Health is wealth.
And that leads me to our last topic, which what advice do you have for individuals in their teens, honestly, even in their mid-20s, who don't realize what they're actually doing to their body when they want to be a bodybuilder, when they want to make it as Mr. Olympia? Let's talk about that.
Sure. I mean, I think it goes back to, kind of the instant gratification,
Yeah.
right? Especially in today's society where, social media platforms give, I don't want to say false hope, but it paints a picture. Everything I've ever posted while I was competing had everything to do with the best lighting, when I have a pump,
Yeah.
when I was, a week out from stage, and I don't want to say unfortunately, but I never really got vulnerable and said, man, I was challenged through, these experiences. I'm hungry, I'm starving, I'm tired, I'm all of these things. But I also just kind of wanted to establish this you can do it mentality as well. And I always wanted to showcase, the positive side of it, because for me, it is about, resonating positivity into this world and saying, hey, no one's forcing you to do this. My why is different than yours, or it may be different than yours, but my why had everything to do with, the kids down in Mexico where I was building homes for in these poverty stricken, areas who, not only didn't want to eat the tilapia and all this stuff that oftentimes bodybuilders eat, they didn't have a choice. There was nothing to eat.
Right.
Big difference.
It's a blessing
It is a
to be a
blessing.
bodybuilder in America.
100%.
Yeah.
So that was my why. I always, and every time I worked out, I thank God for my God given, my senses, my physical abilities, the fact that I had food on my table, the fact that I could heat it up, the fact that I could afford to travel and compete, and
Exactly.
all of those things. I stopped complaining. I just stopped complaining. So to piggyback off of that and to go back to, these kids who just want to grow and get big and make it to the, Olympia stage and all these things, time is the most precious asset. You'll never get it back, but be patient. Be patient through the process, which I always like to call patience, perseverance. Still persevere through,
Yeah.
but it's going to take time. Don't rush this game, because if you want longevity in this sport, it's going to take time. If you want to capitalize on this sport, it's going to take time. If you want to monetize this sport from a financial perspective, it's going to take time, more than likely. Now we have, anomalies and things that happen, but at the end of the day, time is the most precious asset, but patience, more importantly.
Patience.
Perseverance. Persevere, drive through, do what you have to do to get the job done within reason. Uh, but you can do it, and I think that you can do it mentality leads a lot of people to, what? It's not insanity. It's not, getting up and doing the same thing every day, expecting different results. It's the definition of insanity. You'll drive yourself crazy. It's one foot in front of the other, one day at a time, and do what you can do with what you have and watch the results.
Pushing back on that a little bit, you get a lot of flack.
Sure.
Not only because you're a judge, but because when you were a pro, and people see your image on IG, and we talked about projection,
Sure.
right? And it falls into the communication category, right?
Absolutely.
So what I've seen in this industry is doesn't necessarily have to be the younger generation, but most people look at you and think that your physique is unattainable.
Sure.
And yeah, but I truly believe that it's them projecting the fact that they don't have the willpower to push through. And I'm seeing so much of that on IG, and it hurts. It hurts to see. And I sometimes when I didn't understand this world, I would do that internally, like think about it to myself, like this is not possible without doing certain things
Sure.
or having some assistance in a non-conventional way. But again, when I learned about bodybuilding, when I learned about health and fitness more, if you want something, you can achieve it.
Absolutely.
You just have to push. So, props to you for flack that you've gotten throughout the years, both as a competitor and the judge. But, my message is don't project. Just because you may not be able to do it at that juncture doesn't mean you need to push that mentality on someone else saying that they're fake.
Correct.
And that's what I'm seeing on TikTok and IG every day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And not just even in the bodybuilding industry, but across the board.
Yeah.
I have tons of friends with,
Right.
$1 million homes,
Yeah.
$100,000 cars, Ferraris, Lamborghinis, all these things that are like, well, there's no way that person can afford this or look like this without, PDs, or this person, you can't buy a Lamborghini on this corporate salary, or you have no clue.
Exactly.
You don't know how people get what they get. You don't know. I mean, some of the wealthiest, not rich, but wealthiest people I have ever met in my life, T-shirts, Toyota Camrys, very, kind of behind the scene life. And you would never know, and I hope to, and I pray to be there one day as I think the 17th potential black billionaire in the world. I think there's 16 or 17
Coming
at this
up,
point.
coming up.
Yeah, it's coming up.
Yeah.
So just speaking that into existence. But you never know how people get what they get, and I would say just tunnel vision yourself and focus on you and what you can do, for you, your family, and how you can make that the most beneficial and advantageous, part of your life. And yeah, you're right. Don't, it's, what's the point of what's the point of even, it's almost like projection is hate. It's like, it's very interesting to me. It's just like, do you have that much time in your life and schedule to literally solely focus on another human being
Exactly.
and tear someone down for your own satisfaction and good? It's interesting. Doesn't make any sense to me.
Rather than project and hate, be your best self.
Absolutely.
That's the bottom line.
Absolutely.
Just be your best self.
Because you will inspire someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an exponential effect, guys. And with that, I gotta say, I appreciate you so much, Pat,
Absolutely.
for coming on.
Thank
It's
you, my
wonderful
man.
to have you here.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And
Thank you.
that's Financial Fitness, guys.